Hey there friends, it's Laurie. I'm so happy you stopped by because today I'm sharing 4 Valentine's Day DIYs. I made a Minnie Mouse love sign, a heart-shaped wreath, a really cute Be Mine house, and a garden love fence. They're all easy and inexpensive to make. I used mostly Dollar Tree supplies and some items from Temu for the wreath. As always, I hope you have fun crafting with me, so let's get busy. Getting started, I'm using one of the wooden love signs from the Dollar Tree. It measures 9 inches in length and 3 inches tall. I'm using some red acrylic paint and I'm painting the L, the V, and the E. I was thinking of painting the bottom edge of the sign white, but I ended up painting it completely red. I'm now using my black acrylic paint and I'm painting the O. To make my Minnie Mouse ears, I'm using 2 1.5-inch wooden circles, and I picked mine up at Michael's. I used the same black acrylic paint and painted them on both sides. I'm attaching them onto the O on my love sign using my E6000. I added on 2 dots of glue and then attached the ears. To make her bow, I'm using a 7/8 inch piece of red with white heart ribbon, and this came from the Dollar Tree. I'm making a simple bow small enough to fit between her 2 ears. When I was done, I then cut the 2 ends off at an angle. I then attached it to the top of my O by first placing some hot glue onto the back. To give it a Valentine's Day vibe, I'm adding on a wooden heart sticker, and this came from the Dollar Tree. I used my white acrylic paint and gave it a coat. You can always paint some red dots on it. I'm going to cover mine with some ribbon. I'm using a red and white polka dot, and this came from Michael's. It's large enough to accommodate the heart, so I placed it on top, traced it, and cut it out. I'm attaching the 2 pieces together by first applying some Mod Podge. If you don't want to add on ribbon and you don't want a white heart, you can always paint it red and add on some dots. I let the heart dry and then attached it to the back of the E using my E6000. Now that I'm done, I think this is the cutest Minnie Mouse Valentine's Day inspired sign. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below and leaving me a thumbs up. To all my returning friends, you know I'm always so happy to see you, and I can't wait to talk to everyone down below in the comments. To make my Valentine's Day wreath, I'm starting with a 14-inch grapevine wreath. This came from Temu in a 2-pack, and I paid $10.91. Their prices always fluctuate, so the cost could be a little higher or a little lower. I'm using some boxwood stems. These came from Temu as well, and I bought 24 pieces for $6.08. Before I attach them to the wreath, I'm snipping them off, leaving about a 2-inch stem. I'm attaching them to the wreath, first adding some hot glue onto the stem and then tucking them between the vines. I'm continuing on adding the hot glue and tucking the stems in between the vines, filling out the sections of the wreath. I don't have an exact pattern, but as I'm attaching them, it's pretty much one on the inside, then one on the outside. I'm doing my best trying to leave the least amount of open space. And when I'm done, I ended up using 20 of the boxwood stems. With my first side complete, I turned my heart around and I'm adding the boxwood stems, once again having them drape downwards. Now that it's done, I think it looks so pretty as is, and you could add on a bow and hang it, but you know me, that's not my style. I always have to keep going, so I'm going to add on 2 little pieces of the boxwood that I cut from underneath that you'll never notice, and I'm gluing both on, hiding where I attached the 2 top pieces. To give my wreath that Valentine's Day vibe, I'm adding on 10 heart-shaped with red and white berry stems. These came from Temu and I paid $8.81. Just like the boxwood, I'm trimming all the stems, leaving about 2 inches. I'm attaching 5 to each side and I'm doing my best to evenly space them. Just like the boxwood, I'm having all the berry stems drape downwards. The grapevine wreath, it's not that thick and the stems do slide into it pretty easily. Now that I have all the berry stems attached to the wreath, I'm working my way around and I'm separating them. Once again, I think this wreath is so pretty and you can hang it as is, but I'm going to add on some flower accents. I'm using these pretty mini pink hydrangeas. They come 10 heads to a stem. I bought them at Temu for $2.44. You can also find these at Michael's or Joann's, and I'm only using 4 flowers. I'm adding in a pop of white with some Dollar Tree wildflowers. You'll need 6 of them, and I cut mine from the main stem. I always like to find their placement first before I permanently attach them, and I'm adding the 2 white stems at the top. I'm now adding on the pink mini hydrangeas, 1 on each side. Here comes 2 more of the white flowers and my last 2 hydrangeas. Under those, I'm finishing up each side with a white flower. Happy with their placement, I'm now working my way around with my hot glue gun and attaching them. I'm adding a bow onto my wreath and I'm using some pretty pink ribbon that I already had on hand. It measures 2 inches, it has a sheer center, and it is not wired. I'll be attaching my bow together using an 8-inch piece of floral wire. I'm leaving some ribbon for the tail and then making about a 3-inch loop. I'm pinching it together, twisting my ribbon, and making another matching 3-inch loop. I double check that my loops are the same size. Then using my floral wire, I wrap it around the center, pull it back, and twist it together tightly. I then trimmed off both tail ends at an angle. I want to hide the floral wire in the center of the bow, so I'm taking a piece of the matching ribbon and I'm tying it into a simple knot. I added a dot of hot glue in the center of my bow and placed down the knot. I then turned it over, added on some hot glue, and attached the two ends. I'm attaching the bow by first placing it on the front of my wreath, turning it over, and wrapping the two wires around it. Then, to be sure it doesn't move out of place, I added a tiny bit of hot glue onto the front. To make a hanger for my wreath, I'm using an 18-inch piece of floral wire. I turned it over and wrapped an end on each side. And now that I'm done, my pretty heart-shaped Valentine's Day wreath is ready to hang. To make my Be Mine house, I'm starting with one of the Dollar Tree wooden birdhouse planters. The front of mine, it has some minor imperfections, so I'm using a piece of sandpaper and giving it a smoother finish. I'll be adding on a sticker with a white background, so I'm painting the entire house white with my acrylic paint. Now that my house is dry, I'm going to make a roof for it. If you've watched my past videos, then you know how much I love using the Dollar Tree wooden clothespins as roofing material. For this house, I'll be using 6 of them, and I need to pull them all apart. I now have my 12 individual pieces, and I'm going to attach them into sets of 2 using my E6000. The inside of the clothespins will now be the outside of the roof, and I'm attaching the 2 flat ends together. I have my first one complete, and now I'm going to finish the rest. It's important as you're attaching them together to make sure that all 6 of the ends match up. I set them aside and let them set up for a couple of hours, and now I'm giving them a coat of pink acrylic paint, and mine came from the Dollar Tree. The roof will have a little overhang on the house, so I did paint both sides. They all dried this pretty pink color, and now it's time to attach them to the house. I first placed a generous amount of E6000 on both sides of the roof, and then attached the back 2 clothespins. I made sure they meet at the top, and they hang over the back just a little bit. I then added on 2 more, one next to each. To finish up the roof, I added some E6000 onto the front and attached my last 2 clothespins. To give it a finished edge, I made one just a little bit higher and had the second tuck up next to it. I'm adding on this cute Be Mine sticker from this Dollar Tree pack. As you can see, some are missing, and I actually used those in some past projects. This part is so easy. I'm just placing the sticker down on the front of the house and giving it a little rub. This next step, it's completely optional. I'm using one of the wooden heart stickers from the Dollar Tree and I'm covering the opening on the house. I placed some E6000 around the opening and attached the heart. I'm using a leftover piece of white floral foam that came from the Dollar Tree. I cut it to size so it would fit inside the box. I added in some hot glue and then slipped it inside. I'm using some sprigs of greenery and some small pink flowers from the Dollar Tree. I tucked them into the foam along with some small white flowers that I had on hand. I then used some of the Dollar Tree reindeer moss and tucked it around the flowers and the greenery to hide any of the white foam. Now that I'm done, I'm going to raise it up just a bit using 4 tumbling tower blocks. I attached 2 sets of 2 using my E6000. I let both of them set up and then painted them with the same white acrylic paint. I added E6000 to the top of each block and then placed down the house. This is a Be Mine Valentine's house, and I'm going to add on one more accent. I'm using a wool felt bee. This is a package of 25 that I got at Temu for $2.29. I added a dot of hot glue onto the roof, then placed down the bee. This was so easy and inexpensive to make. It will definitely brighten up any room in your home. To make my love garden fence sign, I'm using a wooden fence section from the Dollar Tree that measures 5.5 by 5.5 inches. There is a hanger on the back and I just snipped it off. I'm using my white acrylic paint and I'm giving it a complete coat. To give my fence a bit of a rustic vibe, I'm going to use my pencil. I'm sketching around the edges of the individual pickets and then rubbing it in with my fingers. This step is completely optional. I just like the way that it defined the individual pieces on the fence. For the letters on my fence, I'm using the L, the V, and the E out of this wooden Dollar Tree pack. If you're not able to find them, you can always use stickers. I used my red acrylic paint and I painted all 3. For the O in the word love, I'm using this pretty wooden sparkly pink heart and it came from this Dollar Tree sticker pack. Before I permanently attach them, I'm going to find their placement on the fence. I'm happy with their spacing, so now I'm attaching them with my E6000. You can always try hot glue, but I was afraid that it might sneak out under the letters. On the top of the fence, I'm adding a bow and I'm using some of this pretty heart ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I then cut a piece long enough and made a simple bow. I then used some E6000 to attach it. Because it's a garden fence, I thought it would be pretty to add on some greenery and flowers, and I'm using these small ones that I had on hand. All I did was add some E6000 to the bottom of the fence and then attach them in place. Now that it's done, you can always lean it against a wall or near a tiered tray. For mine, I'm going to make a simple stand for the back. I'm using 6 of the Dollar Tree's tumbling tower blocks. I added on some E6000, attaching the blocks together, giving me 3 sets of 2. I gave them some time to set up and then painted them with my white acrylic paint. I added a generous amount of E6000 to the top of each block, then pressed them against the 2 ends and the middle of the fence. I let the glue set up, and with that, this cute love garden sign is complete. If you're still here, that's amazing, and it means you had fun making these Valentine's Day DIYs with me. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that little red subscribe button below, and if anyone's looking for more Valentine's Day DIYs, I'll leave some links at the end of this video as well as in my description. I hope you all stay safe, healthy, and happy, and have a lovely day. And until next time, bye everybody!